Welcome, ladies and gents. I am here today with Roman from Heavyset Coaching on the Good Life podcast with myself, Mina, and this is our very first episode.
I know, how exciting, man. I know that's been a long time coming for you, and it's been pretty much my pleasure to be able to sit here with you and do this for the first time.
Absolutely great to have you on board.
My first time too, so hey.
Absolutely great to have you on board, man. So just to give you a heads up, this is a long time in the works. We've sort of been speaking about this for quite a while, right? And what we wanted to do is share some of the content that we discuss sort of in previous times. So just for those of you who don't know, Roman was actually my coach, and I engaged him when I started, hitting the gym. At that point, I was working hard, but I wasn't working smart. Mainly just lifting what I can and eating what I can with no real structure. When I engaged with Roman, he sort of taught me the definition of working smart, but not hard. I mean, actually, let's scrap that last one. I was still working
Let's not
hard.
misinterpret this.
I was definitely still working hard, but
Working
also
more
working
efficiently.
smarter. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Roman, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself, specifically when it comes to your involvement in the fitness industry, and talk to us about your business, Heavyset Coaching?
Yeah, for certain. So my involvement in the fitness industry. Look, I grew up, pretty much a very active kid my whole life. And my first, involvement with any kind of activity, fitness and stuff like that was through martial arts. So, growing up, my dad was, martial arts instructor. He was also spent a lot of time in the weight room and training and stuff. So ever since I remember, that's kind of the environment that I've been exposed to, and, that's sort of what I've known. So, growing up kind of through my 8s and through all the way through to teens and so forth, I was heavily involved in martial arts, and that's what sort of started to get me into the whole physique aspect of it. At that time it was all, bodyweight training. We didn't have much resources or nothing to sort of work with. There was no gyms or whatnot. So it's, push-ups, pull-ups, all that kind of shit that you can do. And, through that time you kind of start to then, I started to realize, oh shit, you started to grow a bit of a chest, everything's starting to develop, and so forth.
Hey, this actually works.
Yeah, it actually works, right? And I mean, at that time you don't know anything. It's again, the work, but you don't know anything behind it. So that's been many years that I've sort of been doing that. And then I, at one point in time, came up to a time in my life where I was sort of cut short in my pursuit of the fighting industry or world, so to say. And due to certain circumstances, couldn't sort of pursue that as a further, more of a professional aspect of it, which I had a massive passion for and I really wanted to do. But I was still so passionate about, fitness and activity and everything that I'm like, well, what's in my control? And I realized, hey, going to the gym. I'll go to the gym, I'll lift weights and, and that's full in my control. I don't need anyone. So bang, that started off. I remember, at that time as well, I picked up a muscle magazine. We used to get them at the post office back then, and it wasn't a muscle magazine. It was a magazine I got from, do you remember those supplement stores that we had? What were they called?
GNC?
Yes, GNC back in the day, right? I got my first set of supplements working hard at my school, what do we call that? Work experience at school.
School excursion, yeah.
Whatever we got paid, right? I went straight to GNC, threw all my money, and this BSN supplement brand mag, they gave it to me, and that was Ronnie Coleman's brand at that time.
Oh, we're going way back now.
Way back, bro. This is
It was a
2000,
good time.
2004, something like that. And then,
Wow.
you looked at that mag and you go, oh shit, man, like, fucking Ronnie Coleman's on this picture, and you're like, that's it. That's all I got to do. I lift heavy weights. I take these BSN supplements, and you're fucking Mr. Olympia, right? So that's it. That's the craze, bro. That's where it started, right? And then, take it many, many years later. So pretty much since I was 15. So, now I'm 32. So now what are we counting? 17 years? That's
Only a few years, man.
That's fucked. We're getting old. So that was when I sort of stepped in the gym kind of full time, and I never left since. There hasn't been any sort of breaks apart from, again, sort of training breaks that you take. And
So how long
it's
have you
a
been
long journey.
actually consistently training?
17 years. I have not consistently stopped since I
Wow.
was 15. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your Heavyset Coaching business? I'm really
Yeah.
interested to know sort of what prompted you to start sharing your knowledge with other people. Because, you know, specifically in the fitness space, you know, a lot of people, you know, it's not uncommon to keep what you know to yourself. And, you know, people can be, you know, a little bit guarding when it comes to that topic. So what made you want to start, you know, sharing your knowledge and helping other people?
Yeah. Well, I've been told a lot by people throughout my time, hey, why don't you teach? Why don't you coach? Look, I've always been the kind of person that sort of undervalued, I guess, what I knew and my experiences and how much I could give back until there was one point during COVID, right? So when we went through COVID, everything settled down. And I guess at that time, we were allowed to work from home. We had more time on our hands. So I got, again, sort of, you know, pushed to do this actually by a work colleague of mine that was also sort of, you know, had a coach at that time and so forth. And then I, at that time, also actually was, again, working with a coach. I was actually competing for my first show in IFPP.
Sure.
And
Which you did really well in.
I did really well in. I mean, we can touch on that. We can touch on that later. For a first time to step on the IFBB stage, it was good. And I just sort of decided, you know what, heck, why not? I kind of, because I already had a few coaches under my belt, I realized that, you know what, all the value that I kind of got from them, it's like I knew these things. Like I started to just validate my knowledge more, and I'm like, I know these things. I can help people. I know how to get outcomes. I know, you know, I even already knew the science behind it. I love to know the whys. I'm always the why guy, right?
Sure.
Like if something's happening, why? So I said, you know what, let's go. Let's do it. I'll, you know, even coach for free. So, you know, I've coached a couple of people for free at that time and sort of saw the outcomes and the results. And, you know, I got amazing feedback. They got tremendous value from it. I also realized that, you know, how much of a value that gave back to me. Being able to be, I guess, you know, the voice of reason in times of the fitness industry where there's a lot of condensed garbage, to put it plainly. And it's hard for people.
Absolutely, man.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, where do you start, brother? So that's where it took off. I said, hey, let's do it. And then one thing led to another. One word went to another. Someone spoke to someone, how much value they got, and off it went. And I just, you know, all this, my branding, everything sort of lit up. And I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do.
And I know you don't just focus on one particular clientele. You pretty much help anyone that wants to get serious about their health and fitness. So, because, you know, some coaches have a niche. You know, they'll only work with people looking to go pro, or they only work with a certain age demographic. You're actually not like that at all. You work with men, women, children, whatever age bracket, as long as they want to get serious.
Yeah, most certainly. And, you know, the fact of that demographic is that, look, majority of people that really need that guidance would be that everyday person, right? Because, like, again, where do you start? What do you listen to? What do you don't? And in all honesty, like, you know how you say some people work with athletes and stuff like that. I find it a lot more rewarding working with, you know, your everyday people that this means so much to, and it pretty much, you know, it can change their life. It changes their self-confidence, their perspective about themselves, how they carry themselves, you know, how they feel about, you know, themselves every single day. Like some of us, go through life, you know, everyone's got some kind of insecurities these days and so forth. And it's hard to get started. It's hard to walk into that gym and everyone is, you know, looking a certain way and you're judging yourself, right? And especially when you don't know what to do. So, you know, as long as I can be there, giving them that reassurance of, you know, what's right, what's not, how they can get outcomes, that's everything to me. And in terms of, you know, the other clients like bodybuilding and so forth as well, again, you'll be surprised on how much of our niche or our, let's say, tribe of these people, they only do things because someone else before them did it that way and they're just told to do that too, and they don't really know why, what the hell's going on, just because that's how everyone did it, and is it really right or good? And when you start to look at health and all those other things, it's another different perspective, which I'm really passionate about.
Absolutely, man. I mentioned earlier that what prompted me to do this episode with you was when I engaged you earlier to give me some coaching when I wanted to take it seriously. You would be surprised, and sort of one of our bigger motivations for doing this episode is how many people want to get started, but don't actually know who to have the conversation with or who to approach. Because it's intimidating, right?
Yeah.
Not many people want to go and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. How do I fix, and turn my life around? It's not an easy conversation to have. So, and let's be realistic. I am talking to about 90% of the population, particularly from the backgrounds that me and you come from, corporate backgrounds. We have office jobs, the people that aren't necessarily gym bros, but do care about their health. They do care about their fitness, and they want to get, in a good shape, right? So knowledge goes a long way. And I believe in working both smarter and harder, right? Because you can be working your ass off, man, trying to do everything within your power, but because you don't have the knowledge or you don't actually know exactly what you're doing, you're trying a bit of this, bit of that, you can actually lose quite a bit of time before you reach the actual result you're trying to achieve, right? So I think this is a good segue sort of right into our first question. And, this is a combination of the Q&As that you have done in the past and also common queries that we get in the office and out and about every single day. So let's get into it.
Yeah, fire away.
You ready?
Let's go.
You excited?
Super.
So, and this is actually a really good question. So the first one is, can you gain muscle and lose fat at the same time? Now, I want you to break that down, particularly when you're talking to, the guys looking to burn some fat, build that muscle, and also the ladies out there looking to tone up and build some muscle mass. What would you say to them?
The first words are the most important. Look, what I would say is...
You'll be fine.
That's boring, right? And what I mean by that is, if you are looking to burn fat and build muscle at the same time, it's a quite tedious, long, inefficient process, right? This also only works on a very small percentage of individuals effectively. And those individuals usually are the completely untrained and new to any sort of physical activity that are going to benefit from any form of, and they call that kind of a recomposition, right? There's many ways to look at recomposition. I don't look at it on a mainstream thing, but recomposing meaning changing the composition of your body, dropping fat and building muscle usually means at the same time, right? So what you're looking at is those specific individuals that have never had a stimulus of training and nutrition applied to them before. They can technically go through a stage where they can burn fat and build muscle at the same time. However, that is not really going to last long. They're going to find themselves changing due to just the fact that they've just introduced new adaptations to the environment, which is, hey, I'm now training and I'm actually looking after my diet. So your body will naturally start to change just on that basis, mildly. You will look better. You will potentially build a bit of muscle. When I say build, your muscle cells will just fill out. You're not actually going to build any more tissue, and you're going to possibly drop some fat. You might actually not drop any fat, but because your muscle cells are now filled out because of the stimulus of training, you're putting a lot more fuel into that muscle. I'm going to try to speak in very simple terms just so that everyone can understand, right? And what your muscles does is they expand, kind of like a balloon, right? So now imagine that you've got the same amount of fat. You didn't really lose any fat, but you've got fuller muscles. So visually, you're going to look like you have less fat, right?
Right.
And that is then going to stop. It will just plateau off. And this is what we see with a lot of people that just go to the gym and they go, well, I try to eat healthy. And it's like, I've changed, but that's it. Now I don't know what to do. What do I do now? I'm not getting any better. I've just stopped. This is why you see people come month on month, year on year. They all look similar, right? So recomposition side of things, it's like, yes, if you're brand new or if you've taken a massive time off training and you pretty much detrained and you're coming back and you might get a few months of that effect and then that's it. Now, the more effective way and a way where you're going to get outcomes a lot quicker is always to choose which side you want to go with. And this is probably going to depend again on how you feel about yourself, where you're at right now. And this is, hey, do you actually need to focus on losing fat or do you need to focus on building muscle, depending on how you look and what your end result is. This concept will go the same for men and women. In terms of women wanting to tone up, slightly different. That's more of a concept of what they actually think toning up is. But that is what they should be technically going through is, hey, let's focus on cutting fat. Or for you, hey, you're a very lean guy or girl, whatever, you don't have enough tissue on you. Then we just focus on building muscle.
So you're saying initially, the first initial shock to the body when you do start weight training might give you some results, but that's misleading because it's not long-term and it's definitely not sustainable.
Correct. Well, when I'm saying sustainable, the progress isn't sustainable. Look, right? You can most likely sustain those changes because you're used to just doing that, right? But you're not going to get any more out of it. So whatever you just got from there, and now that your progress is plateaued, that's it. That's where you'll remain.
Right.
Unless you start to then shift variables, like you start to understand how to shift your diet towards your goals, how to shift your training towards your goals. And that is when you will see that no matter how you do it, people will start to then go, okay, I need to focus on building muscle, or I need to focus on losing fat, not at the same time, because it's very inefficient.
And that was, I don't know if you realize that was 15 minutes just on the first question.
Wow. We didn't even touch on women thinking about toning up.
Do you want to?
Yeah, just really quickly, most certainly. I think it's really important, right? Females have this misconception around, I want to tone up, I don't want to build muscle, or I don't want to get big. The fact is, concept of toning up is just a difference between how much body fat you hold and how much muscle mass you hold. So if you want to tone up, you technically, what you're saying is you want to have a bit more muscle and a bit less fat, right? Because you're going to look more toned. The females that look toned have not much fat, but they have nice full muscles. And females tend to think that if they lift weights, they're just going to wake up and become big, massive bodybuilders overnight. And, if you find that out and how to do that, please let me know, because I would like to have some tips from you. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So that's essentially what toning up is body recomposition. It's dropping fat and adding on some muscle.
I think the most important point to touch on there is, that first question is the dream, right? It's what everyone that wants to get into shape wants to do. They want to cut the fat and build the muscle at the same time. It doesn't quite work that way.
Does not.
Leading to the next one. So, okay, this is also a good one, which I think will tie into what you were saying. How important is what you eat in relation to your fitness goals? And, like some common objections you hear when you start talking about your food is, oh, I don't have the time to meal prep. I'm too busy. I'm on the road, so I just grab something. Or I don't want to eat the same thing every day. That's boring. What would you say to those people? Maybe break the question in two. So start with the first one. How important is what you eat in relation to your fitness goals?
Look, it's very important. I mean, because if you want to be effective I'm going to keep this to body composition rather than, let's say, performance, which I might mention, because most people care about body composition, is you will never out-train your diet, right? If your diet is rubbish, no matter how much you're going to train, you're not going to outdo it. And especially when it comes down to most people wanting to lose fat and put on muscle, right? Because a lot of people overestimate how much they actually burn calorically, and we might go into that to get you a bit of a better understanding of it through their training, and it's never actually that much. So what you put in your mouth throughout the day is really what's going to get you the outcomes visually that you're after. However, that is also not going to happen without training, which is probably another part that we'll talk about.
So the second part of that was, when it comes to meal prepping and eating the same food repeatedly, does it really have to be that boring and that hard?
No, the misconception about boring probably again comes from the extreme side of it, right? Because a lot of people, when they think about those things, everyone looks at the bodybuilders. Everyone looks at, those extreme physiques, and then they go, okay, well, they're doing this, so I must have to do this as well. If you want such extreme outcomes, that extreme, look, to an extent, yes, you're going to have to be quite strict with your food. And the only reason you see the boring part of it is because the amount of effort and energy it takes to actually continuously, so to say, eat the same thing and be so, meticulous around amounts and portions, it becomes hard to be creative. You just don't give a fuck. You're just like, fuck this. I'm just going to eat the same shit, right? That's why. However, your everyday person to get in a fantastic shape does not have to do this. If you really understand portion sizing, calories, calorie control, you can be very creative and eat to an extent, whatever you really want, as long as you keep it within that caloric budget.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So if you want to have a Macca's burger here and there, I mean, sure thing, right? As long as you understand the impact it plays for you long term.
So I think it also goes back to a little bit of discipline as well. I remember when we first had a chat and you told me I've got to eat this much chicken every single day. I was like, huh? I wasn't too keen on the idea. But I think now when you visualize what you're trying to achieve and what it takes to get there, the rest just takes care of itself. I mean, you can go and ask anyone that works with me, either in the office or that sees me consistently enough, and ask them, what is Mina having for lunch today? The chances are they'll say he's having chicken and rice.
That's it.
So
same thing here.
So you just start to form that pattern once you visualize your goal. So there's definitely a discipline aspect to it as well, right? Because if it was easy,
everyone will have it. That's right. And everything is a price, right? We pay a price for everything in life. And if that better physique is something that you're after and a certain look that you're after, it's going to come at a price. Those physiques that you look and inspire to online and all those sort of, extremes of it comes at an extreme price, right? And we just have to kind of realize that it's not all just, some kind of a secret or anything like that. Like it is insane discipline, and you kind of really have to just accept it and commit to it.
You mentioned, well, there you go, guys. And you did mention something about the caloric budget. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to the audience what you're referring to?
Yes, sure. So, I mean, everyone would have heard of calories before, calories in, calories out, all that kind of concept. So just really quickly, I guess, to dumb this stuff down, is calories is fuel. So the amount of calories you take in through the day is how much fuel you put into your body, and our bodies also require a certain amount of fuel to efficiently function day on day. So every cellular process that happens to you as you're literally sitting here just breathing, there's heaps of things going on inside of you, right? That all requires energy. So the biggest consumption of energy or fuel that our bodies require throughout the day, a lot of people say it's exercise. Like, oh, if you exercise a little bit, you don't burn a lot of calories. It's actually not. Just the fact that you're alive, right, is the biggest amount of calories that you expend throughout the day. So that's what calories are, right? They're pretty much a quantification of fuel, of how much fuel you require throughout the day. Now, you have calories, and then you also have macronutrients, whether we might move into that as well, but sort of macronutrients is what makes up the calories, right? So the calories are made up of fat, carbs, and protein. And you can also manipulate those macronutrients to elicit certain physique and performance outcomes, or performance outcomes that are going to help your physique in terms of what ratios they feel your total daily caloric needs.
Well, there you go, guys. Starting with, I guess, let's stick with the calorie topic for a second. So the next question I had for you, and I think this will tie nicely into the calories topic. What are the benefits of macros? And can you tell the audience exactly what macros are? And then the second part of that question is, you have to eat to serve a purpose, right? So you got to eat with intention based on your fitness goals. Can you expand on what that looks like? And I'm talking to the average Joe that wants to, go out there and start lifting a little bit more, okay? But doesn't understand, okay, that equates to actually me consuming a bit more food than I usually would.
Yeah, most certainly. So let's just break down the macros first. So we've got carbs, proteins, and fats. So you've got carbohydrates and proteins share the same caloric value per a gram as each other. So per gram of either carbs or protein, you're going to get 4 calories if you consume each.
Sure.
Right? And if you consume 1 gram of fat, you're going to get 9 calories. So just by looking at that, you can already see how most people's diets in in our today's society are usually made up of carbohydrates and fats, right?
Sure.
And fats are actually twice as more calorie dense than either carbohydrate or protein, meaning that a lot of people usually overconsume fat and overconsume their required energy intakes for the day, right? Also, the fact that it's coming from fat isn't really so productive for your physique goals, your hormones to an extent, and your performance levels. So pretty much what it does take in terms of, like you say, eating for purpose, right? As someone that wants to change how their physique looks like or how they perform in the gym, you would want to break this down and sort of summarizing it from a simpler perspective into most of your calories, if you're also looking to drop fat at the same time, will come from protein ideally. This now, though, when we do talk about this as well, it's a really good thing to understand that there are individual variances from person to person, again, depending on the individual goals that you want, right? So someone that, for instance, wants to recompose, like we said, they will have much greater portion of the caloric intake coming from protein, then carbohydrates, then fats. For instance, someone that is fairly lean and they want to put on muscle more effectively, they will have majority of the portion of the caloric intake coming from carbohydrates, then protein, then fats. What you start to see is there's a common factor in all of this is that fats is usually the lowest macronutrient that we try to consume. And the reason being is that in reality, fats serve the only purpose that they sort of serve, which is actually a very important one though, is our hormonal regulation, right? If we have an extremely low fat diet, our hormones will not be optimal. We'll have issues with that. Hence why we still do consume fats, but only to a point where it's sufficient enough to look after that hormonal part. And then the rest of it, protein is a building block for our tissue. So without protein, without sufficient protein to build muscle mass, you will not build muscle mass. And the carbohydrate aspect of it comes from energy. Think of carbs as your preferred fuel source for your body, which it is. And that's where people kind of get freaked out about sugar and stuff, which you don't really need to as well. And that is sort of the part that is the most differentiating around the common diet of an individual today and a performance or physique-based athlete. Is most people will just consume fats and carbs, whereas an athlete will focus heavily on protein and carbs, whereas the fats will be one of the least things that they consume.
So if I'm a lean guy and I want to start building some muscle mass, how do I eat?
If it was just an off-the-bat prescription, how you want to sort of eat is you would want to aim for... Now, there's many studies around, hey, what's the recommended amount of protein and all that kind of shit, or by the, government or whatever, what they recommend you eat. But in a physique world, you want to be eating anywhere between 1.8 to 3 grams of protein per a kilo of body weight. Now, that's a massive range, right? And that range varies based on, again, where your sort of calories are at, right? So if your calories are really high, you can eat a bit of less protein. If your calories are low, you got to eat more. So if you're a lean guy wanting to put on muscle, what you'll look at is potentially eating from 2 grams to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So if you're 80 kilos, you got to eat a minimum of 160 grams of protein a day. Mm-hmm. Then you're looking at roughly about 0.7 grams of fat per a kilo of body weight that you would want to consume, and the rest that has not already filled your caloric requirement will come from carbohydrates.
Right. And what if we reverse that? What if you're a overweight person looking to cut down a little bit? How would you eat?
If I was a overweight person and carried quite high levels of body fat, I would focus heavily on protein. So probably about 40 to 45% of my caloric intake would come from protein sources, then will be followed by carbohydrates and fats. Now, the kind of equation that I gave you for fats, 0.75, will still remain. The fact that you have a bit more fat on you, you could potentially push those fats a lot further down, because if you do have a deficiency in nutritional fat, your body will just utilize its stores. But it does not mean that you're going to get any more efficient at burning fat if you eat less fat, because your total calories will determine that progress, not how much, so to say, of a certain macronutrient you eat. But that protein focused diet, and the reason why I'm saying that is how I would eat, because it would actually rectify quite a few health markers that usually obese people or quite heavily overweight people would have, such as insulin resistance, which is pretty much resistance to shuttling or utilizing carbohydrates effectively,
Sure.
And so forth. But
I love it. There you go, guys. So whether you're trying to cut down, whether you're trying to build up, it's not all the same. You don't eat the same amount of food in the same amount of way. There is
Certainly
a process, and that's why we need a coach.
That's right. I mean, hey, it's a hack, right? I think, like, talking about, like you said, mindset or eating for purpose, or even thinking about success, like one of the greatest things about, sort of achieving what you want these days is that, there's probably someone else out there that already knows how to do it, right? And you trying to figure something out by yourself is wasting time. And when you waste time, you most likely are going to waste money on all the shit that you're sort of looking at, and all the ideas that you obtain from potentially false claims that you think are going to work, right? So it's a cheat code. Life's cheat code is what?
Fad diets.
Fad diets. Get to someone that knows how to do it, and you're just going to do the right thing from the start. It's going to be most effective use of your time.
I'm going to move it on to, because I think we have quite a bit to cover, and we're only on question 4 or 5, so love it. Keep them coming. But the next question is, how should you approach the gym as a beginner? Okay, and I want to talk specifically to the fundamentals of weight training, some basics, if you can touch on that, and also what they should focus on and prioritize.
When you're starting off, and like anyone, the first thing you should really focus on, prioritize, is strength. If you focus on strength, it's going to then play a massive role into everything you do, right? A lot of the time what we see nowadays is people jump into the gym and they do a whole bunch of volume work, right? They'll do set after set, exercise after exercise.
Lift as much as I can.
Lift as much as you can. If you don't, if you don't hit every chest machine in the gym, you haven't done a chest workout, right? And it's very inefficient. That's it, and it's crazy. Like all they'll do some crazy shit. You'll see like all these, all these weird variations of the chest press that goes to the side like this, or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, focus on the fundamental movements, compound lifts, right? So what I would focus on, what are compound lifts? Are multi-jointed lifts. So things like bench press, shoulder press, your leg press variations, whether you can squat or whether it's a squat. If you can't, you don't need to. Hey, get on a leg press, right? Get on a Smith machine squat. But movements like that are multi-jointed movements where you can actually carry more weight safely, right? This is what you're kind of talking about, more weight, are going to develop your physique a lot faster. And it doesn't actually change, right? The only thing that changes with the beginners and the advanced is that the advanced might add a bit more volume to their workouts through those isolation movements. However, the majority and the bulk of our work still lies within those heavy compound lifts when we want to progress. And that is what we mainly track and try to get the most out of and get stronger, because with strength also comes muscle. For instance, Mina, you right now, as an example, let's say you weigh...
What did I do?
Look, let's say you weigh 80 kilos, right? Now you at 90 kilos, let's say with the same body composition, are going to be a lot stronger version of yourself than you at 80. I mean, that's not a question.
Sure.
So the most simplest thing to do is to focus on getting stronger. As you get stronger, the requirement for more muscle mass is going to have to be there. That adaptation will come.
And can you talk to the form of executing a movement? Because I know you're big on that.
Yeah. I mean, well, one biggest thing is safety, right? If we neglect that, something goes and then guess what? You're out of the gym for quite a while and you're not going to progress for shit. The other thing is as well is...
He's right, guys. Don't get egotistical with it, right?
Yeah. I've been there too, right? I've torn shit and hey, you kind of go, fuck, that's time wasted. The other thing around form is just, again, getting the most bang for your buck. It's kind of like, if you go to the gym and you're executing something incorrectly, what happens is you're actually not stimulating the muscle that you want to stimulate, and you potentially actually stimulating something else, which can then lead to things like imbalances, injuries. Oh shit, my shoulder hurts. Oh, when I do this, my lower back hurts, and progress halts, right? So without health and without you being able to function properly, you cannot grow, you can't progress. So form comes important. And then when we're talking about training, you've got kind of stages of progress. First is form. Until you get the correct form, you should not really focus on anything else. Once the form is down pat, you then can go into, right, now I need to get stronger. So getting stronger and improving performance should never be at a cost of execution. Right. And then once you've maxed that out to a point where pushing strength any further is potentially not a good bang for your buck, or you're now pushing potential risk to injury, you then start to increase volume, which is only then comes through the form of sets, right? So it follows in that progression because, unfortunately, we cannot all get stronger continuously. Otherwise, we'll all be world record, strongman and Eddie Hall. So then how we increase progression is volume. So yeah, it all starts from execution and form.
Can you talk a bit about mechanical tension?
I'm surprised you remember these kind of terminologies. It's good. Hey, that means
I have a good coach.
I'm doing my job right. Yeah, when you remember this. So again, mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is the primary stimulus for muscle growth. And what simply mechanical tension is how much weight and resistance is being put through your muscle tissue at a certain amount of time. So how do we increase mechanical tension? We increase the load lifted. This is kind of when the form falls back into things, right? Because how you execute a movement, you can potentially create more mechanical tension on a muscle. So let's say your bicep in an isolated form where, for instance, you're doing a concentrated curl or like a preacher curl, right? Sure. Your arms are locked off. The only thing that can really technically move that weight is your bicep. Mm-hmm. You can do that with much less weight, create the same mechanical tension onto that muscle than you are doing, say, alternate dumbbell curls. Because you've got this whole body swing that can potentially take away some of that load, it's not going directly to your bicep, so you actually have less mechanical tension. Even though on the preacher curl, you can only use a 10-kilo dumbbell, but standing up and curling, you can use 15. You're most likely losing some of that mechanical tension to the bicep just through the kinetic energy that you're using within your whole body to swing that weight.
There's less resistance on the move.
There's less resistance on the muscle. Yes, correct.
Absolutely.
So that's what mechanical tension is. And again, comes back down to what? Strength. Get into the right position, the right form, and then improve performance from there, creating greater mechanical tension onto the muscle that you want to develop.
Now, continuing with that line of thought, the next question says, I have been training for 3 months, but I haven't seen any results.
Yeah.
Can you talk to what might be going wrong there, and specifically more about progressive overload and how that can be an advantage?
Sure, training-wise, definitely. So if we're looking at it from a training-specific perspective,
Sure.
There can be many things, right? Sure. Most of the time, it comes through training intensity. Everyone that I train with or that I have yet to sort of, coach and said, hey, let's do a session together, they realize that how much actual effort they're still leaving in the bag. We usually get onto something and then next minute they're like, oh my God, I either improved my weight by 20% or I've done X amount of rep extra that I actually thought used to be my failure then, but now now this is my true failure. So intensity is where most people fall short. Most people underestimate how much of intensity they actually have to create for your body to realize that, shit, there is a high enough stimulus that needs adaptation. Otherwise, if we're doing the same shit day in, day out, right? And this is where progressive overload comes in, is your body adapts to that. Like we said, when you start to the gym, you go in, it adapts to it because it's a new stimulus, and then it halts. And then it goes, okay, I'm done. I can do this. If you go 5 times a week as you have been, and we continue doing this, that's it. I'm ready for it. Correct. And progressive overload comes that you constantly have to ensure that you're progressively creating more stimulus through your training. There can be many ways this can be done, whether it is through the frequency of times that you train throughout the week for that particular body part, whether it's as simple as, the most simplest way, increase the load on the bar marginally each time or every week, whatever, when you go back, whether it's increasing the amount of reps you do, right? Or whether it's decreasing the rest periods. There's many ways to do it. However, you need to be aware of your training parameters, what they are, and what or how you're going to progressively overload that program as time goes on to ensure new stimulus constantly for your body to adapt and develop. And that's where, our everyday gym goers kind of fall short, is that, yes, they go to the gym 6-7 times a week. Like when I hear that, would you want to, like,
when are you recovering?
Yeah, right. Hey, if you could get the results going 3 or 4 times, why fuck are you going 7? Right?
Goes back to working smarter and harder.
That's correct. Yeah. And it's a very good point you raised there. It's when you mentioned before, you're like, how do we work smarter and less harder? But it's not that, right?
That's what I was hoping you could do.
Yeah, you hope so. But it's what do you do with your time rather than how many times you go, right? It's how effective are you at the gym and how hard can you work within the set? How much intensity can you put down within one set so that you don't have to spend 1 hour, 1.5 hours in the gym doing so many things? You can create enough stimulus and enough stress response within a few sets, like I can count them like on my hand, rather than doing 12 sets within a session, right? And that's, again, where intensity comes in. And again, like you said, progressive overload, you slowly have to increase something. So imagine if you're going 7 times a week right now and doing all this shit. It's like, where do you go from there, man?
It's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Just repetition alone is not enough because your body is used to the weight that you are pushing. You need to constantly increase that weight to give your body new stimulus to actually adapt to.
That's right. I mean, hey, it's like anything with life, right?
Absolutely.
Without any new stress, you don't develop.
Absolutely, man. Hi, everyone. This is Mina on the Good Life Podcast. Just taking a quick break to let you know that the aim of our podcast is to provide you with both valuable and hopefully entertaining content that improves the quality of everyday life. If you're interested to know more, follow us on all social media. I'll leave the link in the description. Subscribe and follow the journey. I'll see you in the next one. All right, Roman, I want to transition and talk a little bit about mindset, okay? Specifically, when you're approaching a transition like in your health and in your fitness, there's going to be days where you don't feel like going to the gym, where there's going to be days you don't feel like doing the work. So can you draw from your personal experience, how do you approach the get it done mindset and actually doing what needs to be done? And also if you can give some pointers as to how you can start to form your mindset, talk to discipline, talk to the overall bigger picture.
Certainly. The first thing that, I actually talk to my clients about, or either, whether we have a consultation on anything, will always come down to the why, right? So you talk about how do you overcome the times where you don't feel like it? And really it's having a very clear why around what it is, or more so, why is it you're doing what you're doing? Why did you reach out to me? Why did you decide to go on this journey? What's the driver behind the change? Because sometimes we forget around why did we initially want to step forward and get onto a journey of any form of self-improvement.
Sure.
But there's always usually an emotional reason attached to it. And when we can get really close and grounded to that emotional reason, usually the parts where we don't feel like it start to become less important. Now, that does take some time to develop, right? Just kind of that self-awareness more than anything, where we can stop ourselves in tracks when we get emotional and we don't want to do something and say, hang on, let me refer back to my why. And this is where, again, like, you know, having someone in your corner, the more people you have around you that are driving you towards your goal, that will always help you to develop those habits, because habits and, you know, different things that you're not used to don't just come by overnight. So having people, whether it's your coach, whether it's your partner, your spouse, your family, that know about your goal, even, you know, share the why with them, and they are the ones that remind you of, hey, you got to go to the gym today, you got to train, when are you going? You know, if you're living with someone, or, you know, you've got a partner and, you know, they actually also encourage you, say, do you need me to do anything for you, and so forth. It will constantly reinforce that belief within you. And it really comes down to identity, right? A lot of the time while we talk ourselves out of things and when we don't feel like going and when we don't want to do something, it's because we also tend to not believe the fact that who we want to change into is who we are. And that is where, you know, sort of we stop. But as you continuously push through those hard times, and it will never be easy, everything will be difficult, everything will be hard. You will have to do things that you go, I don't want to do this. But it's knowing how you will end up after repeating those uncomfortable things or situations that you don't want to do a few times. You will build a different identity around who you are. And when you start to realize that, you know, hey, I am this person that has a different physique, I am the person that loves fitness, I love to go here and this, those things kind of, you know, take care of themselves.
It also comes down to accountability, doesn't it? You know, you mentioned having someone that knows about your why. That's very powerful, man, because it's a lot easier to let yourself down, but it's a lot harder to let someone else who's counting on you down, or someone who's gunning for you down. And that sort of leads into the next question. It's, you know, does it help to have a training partner?
Most certainly. It's funny, right? It can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing.
Depending on the partner, right?
That's right. Yeah, it helps to have the right training partner, right?
For sure.
But most certainly, and like I love what you said there, right? The accountability part. The more people you have that, you know, in your life that you're accountable to, the most likely it is that you're going to be driven and be pushed to do what it is that you need to get done. So a training partner can help you get to the gym. You know, if they're also there wanting to achieve the same things as you and the same outcomes, and you know that, you know, if you don't turn up, it will let them down, you're also going to be more motivated to go to the gym. Just make sure you're not one of those training partners where you guys both rock up and then just, you know, take a piss out of it for the session.
It ends up being a social gathering.
That's correct.
Next question is, how do you get the motivation to train when you are running low on energy?
Is this for the audience or myself?
Let's speak to the audience and yourself.
I guess it's a very individual thing, right? And again, like, you need to really understand what drives you. Like, it really comes down to the why. Like, when I reflect on myself and you know, some people might look at fitness people or me or anyone and be like, oh, but it's easy for them. They don't have those days. They don't have the days where they feel unmotivated and undriven. But we do a lot of the time. You know, everyone's got those life stresses. But what it comes down to is that identity, like I spoke to before, is that I know that the Roman that I want to be is that person that goes and trains, is that person that improves, you know, year on year, whether it be in my fitness and whatnot. When I don't do that, I feel like I'm letting myself down. I feel like it's not me. I'm not living to my purpose, right? Because I am now,
powerful, man.
Yeah, I'm now becoming a person that is not what I envision or what I want to become. And then you lift yourself up. You go, hey, like, if I need to do this, I will go and do this. If that person that I want to become does this when they feel like this, why am I still here, right? And each person really needs to find that within themselves. And this is why the mindset of it really is a big thing around your long-term success. I have many clients that some of them, they join and they don't really go through that mindset change, or they're very drawn back around discussing those things, whether it's with a coach or with anyone else close to them. They usually fall off a lot quicker from the process than those that are willing to actually open up and have those conversations and work on their identity and work on those mental aspects, because they will be the ones that will go the long term. And that's the success in this game, is who can just continue showing up, doing the right thing day in, day out. Those are the ones that are going to be, getting their goals, or pretty much, getting better outcomes than others, and headed towards to what they want to achieve.
Can you tell the audience sort of what are some of the, I love that, by the way, just remembering your why is very powerful. Something you said about, this is the Roman that I see myself being. And when I don't go to the gym, I'm not living up to that person. It just shows that you care, and it also shows that you're disciplined. And I guess that has taken you years to form, but I think it's very important to also understand that if you want to be at a certain place, you definitely need to have the discipline and the commitment to get there, because it's not going to be easy, man. And that sort of can be translated to all aspects of life, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about, from your coaching experience, what do some of your clients come up to you and say? What are some of the objections that you hear? What are some of the issues or the challenges that you face with your clients, specifically when it comes to getting them to train consistently, or just sticking to a consistent program or, routine, for lack of a better word? Because, the way I envision that is, not everyone thinks my concerns are valid to other people. This just must be a me thing. When in fact, the chances are a lot of people are actually thinking the exact same thing. And it's as simple as getting started before it all rolls over, right? So, what are some of the challenges that your clients face?
You mean getting started?
Yeah, just with getting started. And even when they do get started, what are some of the challenges they come to you with, if any?
A lot of we all heard them before, right? A lot of people, usually the first thing that comes up to them as a challenge is, I don't have time, or I don't have the money to invest into this kind of a thing, or I don't know what I'm doing. It usually falls into those three things, right? Whether it's a confidence thing, a time thing, or a money thing. And it's more about sort of unpacking, again, the truth. Because a lot of the time we say a lot of bullshit to ourselves around, how much time we have, for instance, or whatnot. And again, really understanding what does your daily routine look like? Why don't you have time? What do you spend your time on? And it's interesting. A lot of the people, probably think that, okay, a coach, well, I guess this is also the separation, like with coaching, rather than just having someone that takes you through a workout, as an example, is it's a lot deeper. Right? We want to understand and unpack those daily habits, those daily routines that you have. What is blocking or stopping you from executing consistently, and work a plan around how can we actually also customize and change your training routine, your program, your diet, the times you eat, how much you eat, and all of that to actually suit and form to your life. Because yes, there are aspects of it where we cannot get around. It's like, hey, these are the principles that we need to adhere to. But so much of it that people don't realize is actually flexible, and it can fit around them for them to still continuously make progress towards their goals, which really comes back to, again, knowledge, right? A lot of us struggle also through fear. Hey, I don't know this. I don't know. I'm scared to start because I don't know what it'll be. What if I get judged? What if when I say I'm tired or I can't do something, they're going to look at me like, oh, and look at me. If no one wants to get looked at that way, right? But it's like, hey, that's not the case. Let me understand you. Let me understand what's going on. And then we can actually structure things around that. And then work on some things like, for instance, hey, you know what? We might need to do X, Y, and Z to really get to your goal, but we'll take a progressive approach to it. And as well as knowledge. The more they know about diet, the more they know about training, nutrition, how to control it, the more they realize, hey, you can be flexible. Hey, I can do things like that I thought I couldn't. So now I'm more confident to go and execute it. Now I can go to my birthday party with my friends and stuff like that.
So the next question came from someone who is a gym goer and has been training for a few years. Yes, myself. So when you start to notice, and this is something that I've faced a lot personally, is you start to notice that certain muscle groups enhance and develop faster than others. You know, I'm sure there's a DNA genetics role to play there. How do you focus on the body parts you do want to enhance and even out? And in particular, you know, speaking to the wider audience, you know, and the younger gentlemen out there, bigger arms, smaller waist, how do you focus on those certain muscle groups?
Sure. So taking the genetic conversation out of this, because as we know, most of us are predispositioned genetically to just grow certain body parts quicker.
Less, in other words.
Or less. I mean, if you want to look at it like that from a glass half empty side, sure. How do you focus on the ones that are more underdeveloped, right? So this is where you, again, need to be able to draw back to your training routine. And most of the time, the muscles that grow the best and that look the best on us, we love to train the most. And what people don't realize is, just as a psychological predisposition, most of us go chest and arms and we just smash out chest and arms. You might have a great chest, but then your back sucks and everything else sucks, right? So you need to go back, look at your training and understand how much volume of work you're actually distributing throughout your body. And whatever is lagging, start to attribute more of the training volume to those body parts. So if you have a fantastic chest and you go, I don't need much more chest, I would rather have more back. Hey, why are you doing?
I definitely don't.
Well, there you go. Why are you doing? We can talk about your personal aspects later. Chest two times a week. Why are you doing 5 exercises? Cut that to 2. And take that volume load and put it to your back. Add those sets and exercises to the parts that need it more. And obviously, this is where now training programming come into play. You need to understand how that works and do it intelligently. But that's how you pretty much develop those lagging body parts. It could come back to also form, right? That you're actually not able to, so to say, stimulate those muscles because your form is off. You're not connecting with the muscle to actually develop it.
I love it.
So those are the factors.
I love it. Next question says, how much of a role does metabolism play? And how do you in fact target that if you are on the slower or faster side of metabolism?
Yeah, how much of a role does metabolism play? Off the bat, probably less of a role than most people put their attention to. A lot of people use metabolism as a bit of an excuse. I have a slow one, I have a fast one, I can't gain weight and so forth. In reality, all of our metabolisms are fairly similar in a way that they can be quite closely calculated to how much a certain size individual would roughly burn as a maintenance and so forth.
Sure.
Now, the variance may happen, right? There might be 10, 20% variance here and there. However, you can always pinpoint that, again, from experience. And if you have someone that works with you around, hey, where do you lose weight or not? But also our metabolisms are adaptable. So what a lot of people don't know is that if you say you have a slow metabolism, it's usually because of the lifestyle factors and your dietary factors. If you can standardize that and then start to, for instance, increase your food, you will realize that your body will also develop a better ability to handle a lot more food and not put on weight. Because as our metabolisms adapt when we cut calories and lose weight, and our metabolism actually slow through that, the same way they can go and increase. If we start to up calories, our metabolisms become a lot more faster and efficient at burning those calories. Where we usually start to find issues is movement. When there is no movement throughout the day, that is when your body really struggles to expand excess calories and you start to, again, store them in an unfavorable manner.
Stored as fat.
Yes.
The next one's a good one, actually, and I think this will relate to a lot of people. Tips for controlling your waistline.
Put down the fork.
It's that easy, guys. Stop eating.
That's it. That's right. Really, it's like, we all know how to. No, but Again,
Debatable. I really don't, man, to be honest.
yeah. Hey, but we're just trying to get big. The misconception sometimes is also around, hey, I'm going to train my waist. I'm going to do all these abs exercises and so forth. But reality, tips to controlling your waistline is always going to come down to the diet. It's going to just matter around how well do you manage your nutrition, your caloric intake day to day, and whether, again, what you're actually putting in is geared to eating to purpose. If your purpose is to shrink or minimize your waistline, you've got to be technically eating at a deficit or potentially wanting to lose body fat, so you have to eat for that outcome.
Beautiful. Now, the next one sort of leads into what we're speaking about as well, and I think it's one that a lot of people try, but they can't sustain it. Is training fasted good for losing weight?
No, not at all. So a lot of people think that fasted training, fasted cardio elicits any kind of positive results or better results. However, that is not the case. You got to look at it from, again, the caloric side of things. If your total daily caloric intake is greater than your caloric output, once you push the timeline out to say a week, a few weeks, a month, it is not going to matter at what point in time of the day you're burning more fat than any other point in the day. Because what happens is you will just compensate later on the day when you just start to eat again for that period. You can also say, which is a fact, is that when you're training fasted, you will actually train at a lower intensity than when you have some fuel behind you. So you could potentially actually be detrimenting yourself and your results by going into the gym unoptimally fueled for the best performance, meaning that you actually would burn more calories through your workout because you have calories behind you to fuel that workout.
Sure.
So training fasted does not give you any benefits.
I love it. Now, the next one I sort of had to think about for a minute as well. And it's, what is the difference between a coach versus a personal trainer?
Look, from the coach perspective, it's a lot more of a holistic approach. What you're going to get from a coach, now, hopefully it's a good coach, and there is, again, there's all kinds of personal trainers and there's all kinds of coaches out there, right? Now, I don't want to cut any personal trainers short too and say that, hey, all personal trainers can potentially be, can be bad, or, they're not as a great of a bang for money. I think everyone serves a purpose and at their own stage. But the main difference is that holistic approach. A coach, like we spoke before, will not only talk to you about training, nutrition, they will talk to you about mindset. They will individualize that whole experience for you based on your life, your lifestyles, your experiences, what you've been through, what you haven't. And
it's both inside and outside of the gym, right?
Most certainly, because if there's anything that could help you perform better or achieve your goal towards, your physique that is non-gym related, it definitely plays a part in it. And again, it depends on what kind of a coach you have. Like for me, when I work with my clients, if I can bring my whole life knowledge and experiences and give it to you so that it can better your life, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's actually, it's outside of my nutrition and training aspect. You'll get that, right? Whether you can, funny thing, I talk to my clients sometimes about relationships, finances, all that kind of shit, right?
I know.
Right? So yeah, it plays into a much more holistic approach where you can get a lot benefit from.
And look, I think it's definitely got to do with what your goals are. Some people are fine just getting that support when they do train in the gym for, 30, 40 minutes, an hour. So, no heat on personal trainers. I'm sure you guys are doing a great job too out there. What we're trying to say is, from a coaching perspective, it is a holistic approach. Specifically when you're not in the gym, when you are feeling unmotivated, when you're not sure what the next move is, or you want to adjust something, you can have some of these engaging conversations. Speaking from experience, I know Roman would take my call anytime I called him. We'd book 30-minute sessions that would blow up for an hour, which is like, what the hell, man? You know what? Let's get
wasting my time.
Let's get into a studio and put this on camera. It's about damn time. All right, you want to do one more?
Let's go.
I'll give you one more to wrap up with. So, and kept the spiciest till last. Performance enhancing drugs, PEDs, education, and what are the do's and don'ts?
Education. That's a big one, right? There's a lot of uneducated approaches to PEDs out there. And it being so prevalent in our industry at the moment, unfortunately, you see a lot of horror stories and sometimes you hear that, hey, I do this, or I got told to do this. And it's like, God, like, with so much information out there that we have, there is still a lot of poor information. And it kind of goes back to, again, because I did that 10 years ago. Someone told me, and now I'm telling you.
Sure.
So if you are planning on delving into that world or looking into that, education plays a massive part. Take your time to, get resourceful and find really good, credible, evidence-based information around this. Now, there's many ways to do that. You can either find those sources yourself, or again, get a coach that knows what to do, that has done it, that has some literacy around these things. And the do's and don'ts. The things that you don't want to do is you don't want to go into your gym and get a vial from your bro and go, bro, don't worry, just do 2 cc's every day or every second day, twice a week. You don't want to do that. Don't take this lightly. Be very strategic and treat your health as your first priority. There is a better way and a smarter approach to this. Nothing is without risk. You cannot say that, hey, I can take performance enhancing drugs and eliminate risk. However, you can be smarter around it and do it in a way that can potentially reduce harm.
Don't just get excited and jump into it, right? I think where a lot of people fall into a trap is, okay, let's give this a go. And they just, put anything into their body without doing the research to not just go on gear. But you made a really good point earlier when we were speaking on the phone. It's how you get off the gear.
Oh, yeah. We can talk about, that's a topic in its own, yeah.
Absolutely. So just spend the time doing the research.
Most certainly.
Roman, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, thank you for watching the first episode. So if you like what you heard and you would like to take that next step into your fitness and health journey, we have a special promotion for those of you who are referred by dropping my name or the Good Life podcast. We'll get a free consultation and 10% off all services. That's including a meal plan and a training program, just by referring either myself or the Good Life podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.